And good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. After a long-awaited hiatus, the team at Go Folk Yourself is back for the latest and greatest episode of Go Folk Yourself, an American podcast, brought to you simultaneously live from sunny Gainesville, Florida, sunny Orlando, Florida, and drizzly, rainy Seattle, and somewhere wherever the hell Dan K lives. So on the mic, everybody, you've got myself, Brett. Who else is here tonight?
Oh, you got no. You are B team, and you will speak when B team speaks.
How dare you?
You've got Dan Barron, who is laying down the Go Folk Yourself law. In fact, I do need to say, even though you guys might not see this at home, I'm very disappointed that Nick does not have a Sasquatch as his backdrop. Instead, he's forcing us to look at beautiful nature.
This is where I found the Sasquatch. I'll have you know.
Is he in that picture?
He's like right there.
Oh, all right. Well, never mind then. I take it back.
Yep.
That translates real well to podcasting.
Yep.
That's what we do here. Sight gags.
Yeah.
Sight gags. Audio sight gags for the
Speaking of which, Dan, why aren't you wearing a shirt today?
Why would I wear a shirt? We're in quarantine.
That's true. Quarantine
is easier to clean if you
month.
can just jump into the shower at any moment.
I agree with you. That's the most efficient way to be. Why waste resources?
That's it. Why am I going to do laundry when I don't care anymore?
I haven't this whole time.
Nothing matters anymore. And that's what's most important, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for listening tonight.
Glad we could pep up your spirits.
In these trying times, the team here at Go Folk Yourself wants you to know that we're doing everything we can to really just entertain you all and ourselves. Being that we've all moved away from each other, we finally figured out how to do this via the internet somehow. Yeah. I mean, that only took us 6 months, 7 months. Tops.
I just got an internet installed at my house.
Yeah, me too. I got the AOL CD, picked that up from the local grocer, installed that on my computer. Now I've got.
We do need to move pretty quickly though, because I only have 120 minutes left on my disc, so let's speed this up.
Wouldn't want to run out. I'll snail mail you another one.
So I believe we're on introductions.
Right. Let me introduce the fourth member of our party, AOL. America Online is her full name.
I love her. And my parents support us, which is most important. So what is it we're talking about today, gentlemen?
I don't know. You just asked us to jump on a call.
About? Yeah, I assumed this was going to be our normal, quad way.
That one of you would have prepared something, right? I mean, that's not really my job. You guys hand me notes and I just read it.
Well, I have some notes here. It says the plaque. So I went to my dentist and I got a ton of information from him about plaque and, tartar and just build up on one's teeth. That's what we're talking about, right?
I think so. So I guess that's what we'll be talking about tonight, everybody.
So gingivitis, the noisy killer.
The smelly killer.
Plaque. So, of course, what better topic for a lockdown than one of the most influential things in all of human history, the plague. Ooh. Play some spooky music there, Victor. Oh, wait, he's not here.
Oh, you said this was about lockdown and I prepared notes on protests?
That's
wrong lockdown. That's next lockdown episode.
Just guys, give me a moment. Okay.
Yeah, we'll be singing our favorite songs from Les Miserables, and it will be wonderful.
I've also got some notes prepared.
The June Revolution is the wrong one to emulate.
I've also got some notes on. It says democracy's fall. I don't fully.
That's what that means. Give it 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
2 weeks.
Got it. Sorry.
We're on the precipice, but we're not quite there.
Yeah, we'll have a in memorial of democracy episode in 3 to 4 weeks. We'll have some good highlights on there, like voting, and well, that was about it. But,
It's going to be a top 10 list. Number 4 will surprise you. Number 3 will beat you.
Oh, jeez.
Number 2 still involves guns. It's just important you know that.
Number 3 can't stay here without my permission, though.
That didn't hit right away, but that was really good.
This is excellent. This is
Well done.
golf clap.
I think that we can just quit recording because I haven't heard such a masterful turn of protesting against the quarter in my entire life.
Yeah, that one woke straight up like Aang out of the Ice Cube in Avatar. The Third Amendment was like, "Nuh-uh, I got something to say here.
Not the fuck in this house, you won't.
Get out of my hotel."
Why don't you have a barracks? Okay, aren't you from the army?
Hi, we're here with the National Guard, so we're in the same country that we live in. Can we live here?
We found you on the couch surfing app. Can we?
Yeah, what if they go through like couch searching or Airbnb? Can they then quarter in your home?
If you
quarter
accept
in my
them,
home
yes.
Only via Airbnb, where I am a super host.
I believe it's the same issue as getting an Airbnb and not paying them and then never leaving. That would be.
Isn't that what you guys do with
Who knew the
Airbnb?
National Guard was going to invoke squatters' rights?
Happy
what are they gonna
birthday,
do?
Erica.
Send
Your
the
home is the
cleaner?
military home.
Oh, we're laughing.
Hey,
This is
it's
how I
literally
deal
the
with uncomfortability.
Only thing you can do right now is laugh. And
So we had to have had a point to today's call.
Yes, on a lighter note, I believe we were talking about pandemics.
that is correct. The most, well, not really the most pressing thing in our life right now, but hey, it was what we had prepared, so that's what we're going with.
It was pressing a week ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
when we put all this together. But, 2020, literally the worst year that has ever existed. So, or was it? Maybe we can take a historical walk down some other famed plagues throughout human history and maybe come to some conclusions and maybe throw in some raunchy jokes. Maybe that'll lighten the mood a little bit.
That does
Let's give
sound
it a
like something
spin.
we would do.
So, first question I have for you, gentlemen, today. What is it about the concept of a plague that captures people's imaginations? What do you think of? What images come to mind?
I think
think-
of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I think of like the cart of dead people being wheeled down the street. Does that count?
Absolutely.
I think
Right there with
it's
you.
like the card of dead people, and even in what's Matt Groening's new show, Disenchantment. They kind of addressed a similar thing. Like everybody, when they picture plagues, like you always think like ancient plagues, medieval plagues. So the same thing. They have the card of dead people. People are like, I'm just going to hop on. I'm going to die in a second anyways. So it's rare that anybody's like, yeah, I'm going to think about a modern plague. If you say that, like, I feel like everybody kind of immediately goes to like the Black Death and not, now.
Absolutely. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is the fact that plagues are not just necessarily stuck in the Black Death times. Like we've had plagues all the way up until the present day. So you've got examples going from like the Spanish flu in the early 20th century, probably one that most people most recently would refer back to. Dan K, isn't that something in your background to know something about that?
Oh, you mean like concentration in early 20th century
Yeah,
history?
something like that.
Yes, it's amongst the various horrible events that I bring up when I justify why people thought the world was ending. In the
How
early
high does
20th
it
century.
rank amongst the other events of what you're referring to? Like if there was a top 10 list, where does the Spanish flu land?
I mean, it killed more people than the First World War, if I'm not
Really?
correct. Yeah, I'll have to check those numbers. But I mean, you've got First World War directly into the Spanish flu, into the Depression, into World War II, which ends with the Holocaust and atomic weapons.
Allegedly.
Like that's a pretty rough run. So it does get nestled inside of horrific tragedies, but it in itself is its own awful story of propaganda and government secrecy and untold death.
Huh. Well, it's just as depressing as the rest of this stuff is going to be. Huh.
Who knew?
Party.
Party.
Do we get a
indeed.
Reagan at the end of this one as well? Because that's what saved the 20th century was Reagan, right? Am I right. Boys?
Everything from the top just trickled down onto the rest of us and turned out to be a pile of shit.
Oh God, what a horrible thing. So when let's take it back to something a little bit less modern than the 20th century. So what if I want you guys to put your imagination hats on right now. When you think of ancient people and the plague, what things do you think would come to their mind? And when I say ancient, let's go medieval. That's everybody's favorite place to take this.
God.
Yeah, I was going to say punishment from above.
Yeah,
Yeah,
without
it
a
could
doubt.
only be that or witches.
Perhaps both.
Witches pissed off God, probably.
Because witches were the brides of Satan, if I'm not mistaken.
And
So
we still are. So
An envied position among us all.
and if you think back over the plagues that come to your mind, what's the one that you would most not want to go through?
this one.
The current one, yeah.
The current one.
Yeah,
No.
the current one's pretty bad.
No, you are all insane. The current one is you're next to maybe some minor ones in history. You're doing all right. What you do not want to be involved in is the Black Death. What you do not want to be involved in is the ancient plagues, like the early Roman plagues. What you do not want to be involved in is smallpox.
I think he's completely right on that.
Smallpox is making a comeback, though, guys.
Thank
Is
God. We had that large pox for a while, and smallpox is so much easier to handle.
It's much more
You-
convenient.
You know, large pox is syphilis.
Is it
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I told you not
Yeah.
to tell anybody about that.
Is it so small, like large pox, I guess, for the lack of a better word?
Yeah, I
That's
don't think they call it large pox.
Did they
Damn,
really
girl,
call
you
it
got
that?
some big pox going on.
That's fascinating. I had no idea. The French disease, just
Is
so we're
chicken
clear.
pox like middle pox then?
Medium pox.
Medium pox. Can I get a medium pox and a Diet Coke?
I don't even know what chicken pox is. I'm pretty sure I had that.
I was going to say, did you not have it?
Most people.
Yeah, because
have
if
it.
you get it now, I think it's called shingles.
Yeah,
Is
because
it
you're
really?
old.
Yeah.
Wow. Literally, I didn't research anything outside of like the top 5 that I picked, so I'm pretty clueless when it comes to medical history.
Well, I don't think chickenpox counts as a pandemic or a plague. So
The plague
you got
of
that going
chickenpox
for you.
is sweeping first grades across the nation.
You could ask my mother, who was a kindergarten teacher, and she may tell you otherwise.
She may hate hair lice more than she hates chickenpox.
Actually, that is correct. She would always
Yeah.
freak out over a lice outbreak rather than a chicken pox outbreak.
So plagues, huh?
Here it
plague.
is. Sorry, just doing my research while on the call. The term smallpox was first used in Britain in the early 16th century to distinguish the disease from syphilis, which was then known as the Great Pox.
Wait, so you're saying the president of the United States likely has the great pox?
I'll have you know it's the best pox. Thank you very much, you piece of shit. My pox are huge. All right, they're just huge. Like, you have no fucking
Huge
idea.
pox.
Huge
Best
pox.
pox.
The best pox.
Go
Big
folk
leap.
yourself. A know nothing podcast tried to claim that my pox were not great.
Sleepy Dan has no idea what he's talking about.
His pox are so small. I mean, trust me. Ask his wife. She'll tell you.
Stop this, all of you. How dare you bring your shitty Trump impressions into this folklore podcast?
We were a good, respected institution of folklore.
Look, we're getting to the point where if you say his name 3 times in a darkened bathroom, he will appear in your mirror and he'll come for your eyes. All right, just like Bloody Mary.
He also cut off the federal funding this show used to receive, so we're not fans of him anymore.
Yeah, we used to get all that good NPR money. Now that's all dried up.
And that's why the rest of this episode will only be a pledge drive.
Well, now's as good a time as any, folks.
If you like episodes such as this one, well, we rely on your support more than anything. You can find us on Patreon. Actually, please don't. Give us a couple episodes to spin back up.
Don't give us any money right now.
We haven't earned
until
it
we
yet.
get some more content out. Then you can give us money again.
We'll let you know when it's safe to throw your money at us.
Yeah, this is more
For
like
now, there's real causes to put your money into.
Exactly. Put your
Like
money
this
to
podcast.
something that
Just
matters.
kidding.
Yeah, no, we're nothing compared to everything else going on. Spend your money in the right place, everybody. So let's get back
Like
to
getting a drink at
entertaining these good
McDonald's.
people.
Is that sorry? Go
That's-
ahead.
Yes.
Raid Shadow Legends.
Let's jump back into the content. We've got some good people to entertain here. So I've curated for you guys a list of some of the major plague and pandemic events that happened across global history. And I think that'd be kind of an interesting way to start taking a look at this and compare what we're going through with what the ancients went through, and maybe some interesting things that came out of it. So, as Dan K, you mentioned a Roman plague, did you not, just a couple minutes ago?
Yes, I did indeed. They suffered numerous plagues throughout their history, if I'm not correct, but I believe that you're referring to the Byzantine Empire, if I'm not correct, right?
I am. That was the first one that came to my mind when you mentioned that. So, of course,
Purple plague.
the Purple Plague.
It's not a bad name.
Not a bad
Not
name.
a bad name. Not at all.
I'd rather have it.
You know, I bet if Justinian had it his way, he would have much rather called it that rather than having it being attributed to him.
Yeah, that is a raw deal, isn't it?
Look, Byzantine. Okay, Byzantine people. It's not my plague.
We're going to call
I
this
didn't
the
make it.
plague of Constantinople, really, because like 40% of you died. Look, that's fine. Just don't name it after me. I don't want it. That's cool.
Well, you know why it is named after him, right?
He happened to be the ruler at the time.
This is correct. He also famously contracted it.
Oh,
Really?
History repeats
He
itself.
did. And he did recover from it, but he very famously, being sort of the emperor, actually got this disease that everybody else was getting as well.
Huh.
So it kind of stuck to him because of
I
that.
didn't realize that. Somehow I didn't pick that up in my writing on this. I'm glad that you came on air tonight.
Honestly,
Oh, no
I respect
problem. I'm
a man
always
of
here
the
to
people.
provide tidbits on ancient history.
What I didn't realize about the plague of Justinian is that it was literally the Black Death, just the first major recorded version of it, which is insane. I heard about the plague of Justinian through some early and ancient history classes I took in college, but I hadn't thought about this in years before we started talking about this episode. Did you guys know that it was the Black Plague? How wild is that?
so like it was a first wave. How long before before the Black Death as we know it, or the bubonic plague, did that occur?
Plague of Justinian, 541. The Black Death, as we all know it, about 1340.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Pretty
close.
Yeah.
So we've got to watch out for coronavirus in about,
Let's see, what's that?
800
800
years.
years. So yeah,
800.
2820 is gonna fucking suck.
Man,
I was trying
you
to do the
guys-
like down to the math years, and then I realized, why would I do that? That's not worth it. And
It
I
is
had to
actually
abort and go
almost
800.
exactly to the year 800 years later.
Yeah. It's also pretty bold of you guys to assume that we'll still be here 800 years from
Are you not planning on being here in 800 years?
No, raccoons will have evolved into the next intelligent life on Earth, and humanity will be gone.
They'll
That
be going
podcast,
through
though, is going to be great.
feudalism.
The raccoons are going to sidle up and they're like, "Hi, welcome to Trashcast."
We found all this terrible content from the ape people before us. Let's play it. Apparently, go folk yourself was some sort of sexual pun. I'm not really sure.
Look, I wet my food before I eat it, just like all of you other raccoons. But
let's all take a moment to wash our adorable hands before we eat.
So what are we looking at when it comes to the plague of Justinian? Like, is it pretty much like, are we seeing like identical symptoms, identical like
Same
rates?
disease. Exact same disease.
It's so wild that we don't connect them then, you know?
Well, if I'm correct, we only recently found out it was Black Death, right?
Probably. After exhuming bodies and checking them out with science and forensics like on NCIS.
Quite.
Dan K does research as you make jokes.
But I think that the reason why it's not as widely talked about is because it is from, Eastern Roman Empire history, which for some reason doesn't make it into a lot of major, historical text that's taught in U.S. schools.
It's because it's just not attractive enough. I want a sexy plague.
Oh, you want a sexy plague?
Yes.
Well,
something that captures attentions.
And
boners.
800 years, you got it.
Hell yeah.
This one comes back with a vengeance.
Yes, it's only in 2013 that we figured out that it was actually Yersinia pestis.
Wow, look at that. We're on the cutting edge
That is
here.
why the connection is not made.
We're delivering brand new information to our listeners now.
Congratulations, guys.
Unless our listeners happen to be intelligent, unlike us, then they already know
Right.
The Justinian plague, if I remember my ancient history courses, the Justinian plague was particularly devastating, not only because plagues in the past is like you deal with them by getting rid of the bodies, and generally you can survive most of those plagues. And the various things they would do to protect themselves, which they had no grounding in pure science, but generally worked, didn't work with this plague because it was so fast and so infectious. So they were freaking out because not only were people dying en masse, but they were dying at a point that they couldn't actually bury all the bodies. And they had nowhere to put them. So if I recall, one of the things that happened during the Justinian plague is outside the walls of Constantinople, you basically had a gigantic body pit. Like there was just a designated area where they were throwing all these dead bodies. And I don't know if you've ever smelled several million dead people over the course of a few years.
Yeah, I've been to New Jersey.
But yeah, that was a central... But that was a central facet of life in Constantinople for quite a while because of it.
That's horrifying. Like when you think of Constantinople, like you can imagine, that was a major metropolitan city that was literally racked by the Black Death. And it actually wiped out 40% of the population of the city. And you could also argue that it literally killed the Byzantine Empire as well.
It's probably why they rebranded and became Istanbul.
Much more sexy sounding than Constantinople.
That happened in the 15th century.
Well, yeah, I know, but the PR, I mean, it wasn't quick. It wasn't a thing at the time. They just figured it out.
Do you know how long it took them to text everybody, hey, the new name is Istanbul?
Maybe they changed it in the 15th century because the Black Death came back in the 14th and they really wanted to distance themselves from it.
That's enough plagues. This name clearly draws them in. We got to change this.
I also, in these, noted some famous deaths on here. And the most famous death from the Plague of Justinian I could find was Pope Pelagius II. Fun fact.
I mean, he had it coming.
Pope Pelagius the Wise.
Yep. It's not a story Justinian would tell you.
That's for all you.
So he died in
memes.
590, according to these handy dandy notes I have here. So we're talking like a good 50 years after the beginning of this plague. So like this is not like a quick thing. Like I think everybody's kind of, we're looking at through our current lens of coronavirus and everything, and everybody's kind of like, okay, yeah, hopefully we can squash it now. Like, we're only a few months down. Like, these people dealt with this for 50 years.
Yeah.
That is wild.
That is kind of the case with historical epidemics too, because there is obviously no cure at this time, and it was just something that you dealt with. I mean, that it's a pretty good segue to show that this comes back around, of course, about 800 years later with the Black Death, also, by far the sexiest plague that we've got. Everyone knows that one. But didn't the Black Plague went on for like a couple generations, I want to say. Am I wrong on that?
Well, yeah. So did the Justinian plague.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Justinian plague, it starts in 541, but it's mostly over, I think, about 8 years later. And then what these plagues do is they kind of keep coming back in little waves. So it comes back a little bit, 40 years later, and then 100 years after that, you get another resurgence of it, and it just kind of washes over and over and over again until you get this big kind of pause, and that's when you start, this medieval plague period.
Huh. I wonder,
because for the most part, like when you look, like from a medical perspective, they are not using the germ theory of transmission of disease and everything. Like a lot of times you're still looking at it through imbalanced humors and like bad auras, miasmas, things of that nature, where they're just like, they had something going on their own, and it kind of passes around almost like vibes, right? Like, oh, they had some bad vibes and they're kind of spreading them out this way. It's not like they're looking at it and saying, okay, clearly they are infected with this germ. If I sneeze on Dan, he's going to get it. And then if he sneezes on, Brett, then it's so on. And like that, it's kind of unknown to them almost.
Compound it with the idea that there was the religious fascination to it, and the idea that only bad people would get it, and then of course you'd get it, people would assume you were bad. It was, there wasn't a science behind it. It was a guesswork, and they were close. At least I know with the Black Death there was a form of social distancing, but by social distancing I mean people were smart enough to distance themselves from the corpses.
Right.
So like they understood in a weird way what was happening, but yeah, there was not that germ theory to it. It was just kind of guesswork.
Yeah, they definitely stumbled into it.
The people of Constantinople straight up believed that they were being punished. Like they believed it was divine retribution. So there was none of that.
That's what Justinian gets for codifying all those laws. Real,
not at all.
Divine retribution.
He survived.
Clearly, he was
for being
man.
A good boy.
He was blessed and highly favored, unlike Pelagius II. Clearly not.
The Pope. So when we're kind of comparing the two, what are we looking at for like a death toll comparison? Are they comparable, or is it like worlds apart?
Well, sort of. So when you compare the plague of Justinian, you can attribute, from what I found, about 25 million deaths is what the estimate is on that. And the great upheaval event that happened afterwards was basically the nail in the coffin to the Byzantine Empire. The implications of the Black Death are a little bit different. Does anybody have the numbers on the Black Death side?
So I think we're looking at like 75 million deaths from the Black Death. And
that turns into about a third of the working population. And this upheaval event leads to kind of the pull out of feudalism and the rise of the modern city.
Nice.
Because nice indeed. Because with the, huge lapse in human labor, you don't really have a necessary need for serfs and serfdom, and individual laborers moving to cities after this event leads to a boost in pay for laborers that sell their services in city centers. So it's kind of an interesting take on looking at that. So
they were able to keep their economy open, is what you're telling me.
Well,
God damn it.
Only because they knew, if there's no economy, there's no point in being alive. So
you might
just
as well
go for
kill
it.
yourself. Thanks, President.
I think what's really crazy to look at with the Black Death is not only how like bad it was, right? Like you look at the sheer number of deaths, unreal, but in the time frame is what really makes it crazy. It says like between 1346 to 1353, 6 years, bam, we've wiped out 75. And even on the high end, the estimates look like 200 million people. That is wild.
Yeah, it's enough to shock the system to change how society is organized, which is crazy.
Did this disease kill any popes?
This disease did not kill any popes, but it did get an Archbishop of Canterbury.
Fuck that guy.
Oof.
Thomas Bradwardine, and it also claimed the Queen of England, Anne of Bohemia.
The one the cherries are named after.
And the Rhapsody. So any final thoughts on the Black Death before we move on to our next curated selection?
Sexy yet deadly. Just like Angelina Jolie.
Oh God. It also gave us our most iconic emblem of the plague.
And what's that?
No, wait.
Which is the Plague Doctor.
I knew it.
The Plague Doctor is pretty impressive. And I've got a lot of thoughts on Plague Doctors. I might save that one for a little bit later on, though.
We're going to pocket veto that one.
We're going to come back to Plague Doctors.
We're going to come back to Plague Doctors.
I once played a Plague Doctor in the Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, so I'm excited to hear more about them.
Oh,
that doesn't seem like a scary costume. That's more like a creepy costume.
Well, you've clearly never been on the receiving end of a plague doctoring.
I was a creep scare, not a jump scare.
Okay.
A role you were born for.
My jump scare days was when I got to play Leatherface. That was a jump scare. Plague Doctor was a creep scare.
Is that codified as a difference at Halloween Horror Nights?
Yeah, not to derail completely, but yes, there are creep scares which are supposed to either distract the guest to looking away from what will be the jump scare.
You're the alley-oop guy.
Yeah, or setting the atmosphere for the house in the opening. There's the comedic roles, which you're there to just kind of entertain before the scares, and then there are the jump scares. And then there's breaking it up into house and street performers, and there's a hierarchy to it all.
So
you can learn more by buying tickets.
You were not in a Plague Doctor outfit with a chainsaw, is what I'm hearing.
That is correct. No, it was really just the mask, and you had to be very careful about getting too close to people because you could whack people in the face very easily based on where I was standing.
With the beak?
Yeah, with the beak, right in the face.
Did you beak anybody?
I did beak someone once. Yeah. Didn't feel good about it.
In the dressing room. You don't want to know. That's why I don't work there anymore.
Now that I'm hearing this, how has there not been a comedy skit of a Plague Doctor treating someone and just constantly accidentally poking them in the eyes?
I'm so sorry.
You've got to understand. This is very unwieldy. I'm terribly sorry.
Terribly sorry, old chap.
All right. Open your mouth and say, oh, no, sorry.
Sorry, I just slipped right on in. It does that.
It's just part of the job, you know?
These are all very European plagues. Right now, we're dealing with an American plague, though. So,
let's bring it back home, shall we?
You want to take it back to the shores of good old North America, best America?
Well,
number one America.
Well, it used to be pretty good America.
The meth lab underneath Canada's loft apartment.
The continent that houses Canada. We'll call it that one.
Sure.
There you go.
Beautiful. So that ratchets us up in history to the 15th century with the smallpox plague. So what do you guys know about smallpox? Obviously, not grandpox, which is... We
know that.
It was great pox.
Oh, pardon.
Great pox, which they later renamed World Pox 1.
Oh, such a better name.
It isn't, though. It's the worst name.
Is it?
It's a shitty joke, and I'm terribly sorry. But it was just sitting there.
It was good. It was pretty good.
What do you know about World Pox 2, Dan?
We'll call these minor pox.
The thing I know most about World Pox 2 is that Europeans brought it to new lands.
Huh. Have they done that before? I've never heard of Europeans bringing stuff here that's deadly.
Not only did they bring such crowd favorites as colonialism, but they brought smallpox with them.
Here you go, Americans. We brought you these blankets.
Before we get into the transmission, do you have a little bit more information on smallpox?
Yeah, I can tell you what the symptoms are, and I can tell you to not look it up on your computer because it's horrible looking. But the symptoms include fever, vomiting, mouth sores, and then fluid-filled blisters with scabs.
Oh, God.
And you get it after being exposed 1 to 3 weeks later, and you die within like 10 days, 10 to 15 days if you're going to die from it.
I have to go talk to my doctor. I'll be right back.
And it is.
I'm just imagining your doctor. I think I have smallpox. That's what you're worried about right now? You know what? That's fine. Be worried about it. You just stay inside.
Just
I have a
keep doing
dry
what you're doing, pal.
cough, a really bad fever. I think I have smallpox, Doc.
What do you think?
No mouth sores
Unlikely.
or anything. But
I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
Nick delivered that like he was Marty McFly.
I'm not even
I
going
think
to
I
try
got
it again.
smallpox, Doc.
Marty, goddammit, you don't have smallpox. No one's had smallpox for years.
But Doc, we have a time machine.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit. Oh, no.
My mom was an anti-vaxxer, Doc. I can get it.
I told you not to knock her up in the 50s. This is what you get.
Look at me doing the nasty and the pasty, you bastard.
Now hop on my time train. That's a Back to the Future 3 reference for you kids that haven't seen that.
Could
They
you
have a
imagine if he
time
liked any other author? He's like, these are my sons, Stephen and King.
James and Brown.
And here's my new dog, Koontz.
Oh.
What? No, you don't think Doc Brown would like...
I
He's
think
a
Doc
Dean
Brown would
Koontz
like
fan?
Dean Koontz. I'm on board with that.
These are my daughters, Nicholas and Sparks.
Tob and Clancy.
These are my children, Engelbert and Humperdinck.
I have a favorite. Can you guess? It's Humperdinck. So back
deadly
to
diseases.
Back to deadly diseases. So obviously, smallpox, horrible thing brought to North America by European settlers. I actually, it's so we've kind of talked about this a little bit previously. I think in our, I want to say in our Virginia episode, way back throwback, talking
The
about how
before
actually,
times.
yeah, in the before times
When life was
When we-
good.
when everything was hopeful.
We all lived here in
We all
2015.
lived within driving distance of one another. But this racked up a death toll of 95 million during the 15th century, which is equivalent to 90% of all people in the New World gone within a century.
That is,
The Columbian Exchange.
Yeah.
I love coffee.
That is one of the largest losses in life in all of human history, caused by a disease. And that happened right here in North America.
What's most amazing, I think, about because the whole idea of landing in the New World and trading items, that whole thing is generally called the Columbian Exchange. And Europeans got like peanuts and corn and pumpkins and tobacco, and the New World got crazy stuff like bananas and grapes and horses and cattle and smallpox and influenza and typhus and measles and malaria and diphtheria and whooping cough.
Holy shit.
I like the first half of that so much better.
Oh my.
Oh, hell no. No, we brought all those things.
We probably brought him syphilis too.
And peaches.
Grandpox.
Oh, big pox.
Ugh. That's
Yep.
Pretty horrible exchange there. When you think about
it was
the upheaval that brought. I mean, that's entire nations of people just gone from the transmission of a disease. And it's one of those things when you look at American history, it wasn't an empty continent.
No.
It was
not at all.
Far
disease-racked continent. And that, if you look at civilizations like the Aztecs and things like that were just are wiped out by this, and also military efforts. But a large part of it was, being weakened by this. And that is frightening.
Yet we have nothing to apologize for, right? Am I right, guys? Not at all.
Because we also brought,
horses
and tomato.
Delicious horses.
Look, we went to IKEA, got these horses for you. You're welcome.
Do we still have smallpox? Is that a thing that goes around still?
Yes, but there are vaccines for it, so it shouldn't. And that's where I'll kind of leave that, right? It should not be necessarily frequent, but yes, there were, 2 years ago, there was a small outbreak of smallpox.
It was like the first one since like 1977.
Yeah.
Whoa. Like there was one that happened while we were alive.
Yeah, it was a tiny pocket of, it was either in New York or California or something.
That's crazy.
And oddly in an affluent area.
Get vaccinated. Vaccinate your kids. Vaccinate. For fuck's sake. Sorry.
I think that's their motto. The science motto.
Yes. We have a pin at the science meetings we all go to. And it says vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate your kids.
For fuck's sake.
For fuck's sake.
For fuck's sake.
That's the stickers at the door.
So, outside of, 90% of the North American population being eradicated by this, 2 highlights that it also claimed. Tsar Peter II of Russia didn't realize that it went all the way out that way. And King Louis XV of France, both claimed by smallpox.
15th favorite Louis.
Take that, the aristocracy.
Hey, look, all I'm saying is, considering what's happened to some French kings, not the worst way to go.
Do you want me to read you the symptoms again? Fever, vomiting, mouth sores, fluid-filled blisters with scabs. No, I'll take the beheading, buddy.
Yeah, I guess the beheading's over pretty quick.
Yeah, but in that era, they're like, oh, look at this fluid-filled blister with scabs. I wonder what it's from. I don't know. I wonder what this other fluid-filled blister with scab is from. It's a different color.
Better prod at it.
Well, this one's red-orange. The other one's orange-red. These couldn't possibly be related.
Oop, I have a desanguination appointment in 20 minutes, so I have to go and get drained.
Should clear that up in a jiff.
Well, if it's not this, it's the gout.
I'm still not really clear on what gout is. My really only understanding of that comes from a King of the Hill episode where Bobby contracts it from eating deli meat.
We'll do another episode.
I am not an authority on gout, but if I am correct, I believe it affects the muscles, and it can be contracted from bad meat and shellfish. So it's a bacterial issue.
Gross.
I looked up gout, and the first thing I see is a pill called Gout Out. So apparently we've got that one knocked out.
No, we got that one pretty well covered.
Can we knock gout out pretty easily now? I can eat as much deli meat as I want.
Seems like it.
You can go nuts.
Fantastic.
So gout is a form of inflammatory arthritis characterized by recurrent attacks of a red, tender, hot, and swollen joint. I don't see the problem.
This is why we needed a medical professional on this call.
Nick, stop reading at Red and Tender.
Hot, red, and tender. I'm in.
That sounds tasty. Where do I get one?
Slap some ranch on it, and man, that's gonna be a good sandwich.
The new KFC sandwich.
Well, let's talk about something a little. It's actually less
Something
appetizing.
more appetizing. Cholera.
So that'll jump us up into the 19th century for the shittiest plague ever, which is cholera. Thank you.
Good one.
Symptoms include crazy diarrhea, vomiting, and muscle cramps. And also, you can get it within 2 hours of being exposed to it. And you can die within another 2 hours of the illness being onset, depending on comorbidities, which is frightening.
All I've ever known about cholera is one of my favorite books by one of my actual favorite authors is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And in that, it did not seem like something you wanted to wind up with. I have not actually known much more than the symptoms. I did not know that it was so fucking fast.
That is one of my favorite books as well, and I'm glad to hear that you like it too. I actually have.
I love it.
It's a wonderful. I'll have to show you my copy of it. I have a first English edition of it.
That's not my favorite book by him though.
What is it?
Chronicle of a Death Foretold.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
Read that one. That is spectacular.
I'll have to check it out. But yeah, the book makes, it's like it's an event that has happened.
Yeah.
And it's being told from, afterwards. And I didn't realize that it was so rapid and so terrible. Do you know what causes it, Dan?
He gave you a clue.
I mean, I have to assume it has to do with shit.
It does.
Yeah, like that's pretty obvious. I don't know necessarily how it differs from dysentery in that regard, but it seems like if you
very little
happen to get a little bit of shit in you, and that shit is cholera shit.
You got it too. So
most cholera outbreaks, if I'm not correct, originated from basically soil poop in the drinking water.
Yes. Yeah. Night soil.
Dysentery, same kind of idea.
Indeed, night soil. What an amazing early euphemism.
Do you think that they knew how funny that was?
He's my favorite superhero by far.
Night soil.
Night soil.
Captain Night Soil.
I'm Night Soil. Don't drink the water.
Yeah, we know, man. Please go.
You stop shitting in the well.
Put me in the well. It's the only way to do it.
Look, I invented the toilet. I'm Night Soil. You're welcome.
Fortunately, with like the improvements in plumbing, this has become less of an issue. But still, in non-developed nations, this is something that is a reality that a lot of people deal with. So this one ain't even gone. We still got to deal with this shit, I guess.
Night soil.
I mean, it's basically an issue with sanitary methods. If I recall, cholera was really nasty in England in particular, and it's mostly because they got most of their drinking water they got from the how do you pronounce Thames?
The Thames.
The Thames. I'm so sorry, British listeners who apparently listen to the show.
The Thames River.
Come on down to the famous river.
The famous Thames River.
It's the most famous river
famous
here.
riverboat tours.
That was like British Randy Newman. I like that.
Famous river full of shit.
So they would get their drinking water from the Thames, and at the same time, of course, they were also sending all of their wastewater into the same river.
I don't see a problem.
And it was.
I drink out of my toilet.
I believe.
Good to go.
I believe we'd have to do the research on this because I did not personally. That there was one particular doctor in London that basically said, like, I think I know why this is happening. Let me try to use a different water source for this community. And they were like, no, get out of here.
Poppycock. Bollocks.
That's garbage. I only drink Thames water.
The Thames has served us for years.
Fetch me a chunky bucket of Thames water and we'll call it a day. So, fun fact, the most famous death that I can find, James K. Polk, claimed by cholera.
Oh, absolutely. Can we talk about the death of James K. Polk for a moment?
Please.
Or more specifically, the death house that was the White House post-Canadian burning. Thank you, Canada. And pre-figuring out not to drink poop water.
Oh, tell me. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah. So
magical
basically,
little window in history.
James K. Polk is one of the most famous deaths. I believe Andrew Jackson actually got sick from it, and a couple of other presidents along the way too. But many more people died in the White House as a result of cholera because they decided, okay, well, we can't just like bring buckets of Potomac water into the White House anymore because we're not savages. Let's set up a piping system. Thomas Jefferson had proposed getting it from a local spring, and they decided otherwise. So they basically found this different aquifer that was about, I think, 40 feet or 100 feet away from the White House. It was very, very close to the White House. The problem with that source is while it was convenient and uphill, et cetera, so they could let gravity do most of the work, the top of that hill was also their location for their night soil.
Huh. So they climbed a hill to empty the night soil?
They did. They distributed it on that location because it was far away. It also happened to be a great source of water for them. Actually, it did not turn out to be a great source of water. It turned out to be a great source of cholera.
Huh.
Yes, this would be a great place to put all your shit. It's me night soil. Also,
All right,
drink the water. It's delicious.
It's time to convene the cabinet, guys. We got to get some pipes in this building. All right, so Thomas Jefferson says that there's an aquifer like maybe like a mile away. That's a lot of pipe. What if instead
I'm only laying one kind of pipe, and it's not that one.
It's not, absolutely not. What if we ran a pipe from Shit Hill to the White House? What do you guys think? We could knock that out in like a day, tops.
You mean where we put all the night soil?
Yeah, Shit Hill, that place.
That works for me. It's pretty close, and it's downhill.
Motion passed.
You know the saying, shit doesn't roll downhill.
We've got 2 votes. That's quorum.
So you're also familiar with the death of William Henry Harrison, correct?
I am not. Tell me how did WHH go?
Well, WHH died, I believe, about a month and a half into his presidency, if I'm not correct, which is how you got James K. Polk, which nobody wanted. So William Henry Harrison supposedly died of pneumonia because they were saying that when he gave his what is the speech the presidents give at the beginning of the inauguration? He gave his inauguration speech in the rain, and it was incredibly long-winded. Didn't wear a coat. So that's
grandmothers everywhere have been vindicated. See, he didn't wear a coat, and now he's dead. Do you want to be dead too?
And he didn't take his castor oil at night.
I'll tell you what. Just close the windows when you're sleeping, and you don't want to catch a cold.
But it is now generally thought that most likely what had happened was, yes, he may have in fact had pneumonia, but it didn't help that he was drinking cholera-infected water.
Oh, he got the double whammy.
He did.
He got the poopies and the breathies at the same time, and it didn't make it.
I read his chart. That's what it said.
He's still in Disney's Hall of Presidents. So as far as I'm concerned, the man is immortal, despite how terrible his ending was.
Is that why there's always a puddle by that animatronic?
And he's always retching and bending over, holding his gut. Yeah.
That is awful. Way to go. That's the double whammy of things that kill older people.
Yeah. And it is also most likely responsible for the death of Zachary Taylor and Willie Lincoln.
Really?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Willie Lincoln?
Yeah, the son of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay. Thought for some reason you gave Abraham a nickname, and I was going to say, no, I don't think cholera is what got Abraham Lincoln, Dan Gay.
He's sitting there at Forest Theater like, man, this cholera really sucks.
Unless there
cholera,
are very
like I need a hole in the head.
Cholera projectiles that could be fired into an individual. I don't think it was cholera that killed Lincoln.
Man, you don't want to get cholera. Did you see what fucking happened to Lincoln?
Dude's head fucking exploded. I'm not getting cholera. Move shit hill somewhere else.
He was watching a play. He was fine. Next thing you know, he yells "Sic Semper Tyrannis." His head just explodes. Cholera.
First off, really rude for him to scream. We're just trying to watch a play anyways. Like, blow your head up somewhere else, bud.
I don't even know where to go from here.
I know where to go from here. Let's talk about the plague in literature and myth.
Like the exploding cholera head of Abraham Lincoln, also known as Old Willie.
What's your favorite story about President Willie Lincoln?
And his cholera brain.
Oh, that is.
What's the matter, Mr. President? Cholera on the brain?
Cholera.
Oh, I have tears.
Oh, God.
Oh.
So
looking at your notes, it says Willem Dafoe wrote a book about it or something.
Daniel,
his brother Daniel.
So the plague in literature, obviously it's a huge feature in human experience, is that plagues happen, epidemics happen, diseases happen. And there are obviously things that are always chronicled when they do, because they are momentous, society shifting events. One of the, earlier literary accounts of that you can find in Boccaccio's Decameron, which is about a 14th century epic poem of 100 tales being told by people sheltering from the Black Death in a palace. So it's kind of like Arabian Nights meets the Italian countryside, if you will. It's a great read if you're bored out of your mind and want to do some medieval reading.
Why do I feel like that would be a really prescient Netflix series? Like a Black Mirror style history series. Nobody take that. I'm going to work on that. Let's workshop that offline.
Patent pending. Fair use,
that is the most Brett Jernigan thing I have ever heard, by the way. Oh, man, I'm really bored. It's time to break out some medieval literature.
I'm going to light some candles on the old altar and see what happens.
Let's see what I got here. Oh, the Black Prince biography. Yes, of course.
Ah, very good. Funny you should mention it. I don't have a biography of the Black Prince, but I do have two works in which he is greatly featured. William Seward's The 100 Years' War is one of them. It's fantastic if you're looking for some other light reading.
The 100 Years' War is an excellent novel, and also I believe had outbreaks during it. Yeah,
it had a plague during it.
It just gets wrapped up into the 100 years.
As you guys were mentioning, Willem Dafoe's brother Daniel's Journal of a Plague Year.
His much older brother.
Super short story. I've read this one myself. It is not a fun read, but it is a really interesting insight into like a secondhand account of the actual Black Death. So if you're interested, that one is obviously public domain and you can find it literally anywhere, and it's sub 150 pages. So you could knock that one out real quick, listeners, were you so inclined. And then I got some other ones on this here list that I know are some crowd favorites, so I'll let you guys pick one out.
I do like this one here. I think it's like a lesser known author. I'm convinced you guys already know exactly where I'm going with this.
I think I do.
I jumped over to the notes, caught it, and went, "You bastard."
I don't even really know when they wrote this book. The Bible? When they talked about these plagues in Egypt?
Who's the author in that one?
That'd be the nailed God, Jesus Christ.
Got it.
Well, his buddies wrote it.
Oh, I thought that was pronounced Christ.
The Lord Charlie Christ.
Christ, yes.
But yeah, I mean, I think all jokes aside, like, the Bible is obviously a pretty well-known source of plague stories, through obviously millennia ago, and even further, but still.
That's how God causes the plague.
Right.
That's how
it's God's book. He literally told us, like, you're gonna get locusts. And that's how I know coronavirus isn't real. There's been no locusts.
No.
Water hasn't turned to blood yet, so
Not
we
at all.
can't be on plague.
Look, I can't be sure. I did slaughter a sheep and put the blood over my door. So maybe
Thanks
it's
for
real.
joining us on our episode on the pandemic.
Hey,
No.
look, it's only June, okay? The rest of them are coming, guys. I've been saying it since February.
Here's how I know this is all just a simulation or something. You're like, it's June. I'm like, what the fuck? No, it's not. It's like April. And then I realized, no, it's June.
No, that's
June.
just because we've been locked in our Venetian palaces since February.
Surrounded with all these lush leather armchairs and, bookcases and cigars and whatnot. It's tough.
Persian cats are getting very annoying.
They really
I'm
are.
not going to lie.
I felt that it would be best to split them and distribute them amongst the staff, being that we've been scattered to the winds, to have a little piece of home no matter where you go.
Obviously, we gave Victor the mouse that lived with them.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, if we're going to talk about plague stories, I want to mention you put down on your list Stephen King's The Stand.
Hell yes.
And more importantly, your note on that book is the longest fucking book ever written. And that's inaccurate. And it's inaccurate.
Because I've read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Just because you haven't finished the book doesn't make it the longest book.
I told you I was terrified of it because I started reading it in December. And then when we got into February, it got a little too real. And I decided to stop because of anxiety.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then you jumped over to the Dark Tower for a little bit and doesn't make it better.
It doesn't. And then I jumped from the Dark Tower to William Seward's The 100 Years' War.
I'm going to make it a point to send you a happy book.
William Seward's The 100 Years' War. Is that the thinner one? It's like about 150 pages.
Which one? The 100 Years'
Is
War?
it a thinner one? Yeah.
Or excuse me, it's by Desmond Seward. It's like
Desmond. Different.
210, 250, somewhere in there.
I think we both have the same book.
It's about basically a long string of anecdotes. It's as most medieval writing is, not really told in any particularly good order, but a recount of novel things that have happened.
But the illustrations are fantastic.
Yes.
All hand drawn.
I drew in your books. I'm sorry, guys.
The Stand is still one of my favorite books. But honestly, The Stand is only a plague book for about the first third of it, I'd say.
Yeah. After by the midway point, that is not your concern anymore.
No, you are now dealing with good versus evil.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
Lending further
pushing
credence
through.
to the fact that Brett didn't finish the book.
Absolutely. It would be like saying, oh man, Lord of the Rings is about going through the mines of Moria.
I would be sold on that.
Or man, I love those Harry Potter books because it's all about shopping on Diagon Alley.
I would read that 100%.
But the funny thing is with The Stand, the one thing I always laughed at The Stand is that in the book, the citizens named the superflu Captain Trips. Like that's their nickname for the superflu is Captain Trips. And I always thought it was the dumbest name. Like no one would ever name it that. And then this year, I have seen every kind of interesting name. They named it Boomer Doomer.
I have not seen that one.
I've only heard the racist ones that were espoused by our president. But other than that,
I just really liked Miss Rona. That was always a winner in my book because I imagined her as a sassy drag queen. There's a window into my life. Well, yeah. Could you imagine an unsassy drag queen? She's like, yeah, whatever. This is how I dress. Do you not like it? That's fine, I guess.
If you want the tips, you got to ratchet up the sass a little bit, okay?
You better work.
You also mentioned in your notes the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Of course, one of the horses or horsemen, not the horse itself.
Well, that horse
or maybe
is
the
a
horse
plague.
itself. I played a lot of Red Dead 1, being plague.
Yeah, that's more in the plague and mythology. But absolutely, that is something I wanted to connect for a couple minutes on, because it is a super badass, like hyper metal version of talking about the things that plague mankind as horsemen. And that's like literally the greatest thing from the Bible, in my opinion. Huge fan.
Wait, the horsemen were plague, war, pestilence, and is it
Famine.
just death?
No,
Famine.
pestilence, war, plague, and the pestilence, war, famine, and death.
Got it.
Yeah, pestilence, war, famine, and death. Although I never got why death was in there, because don't you get that from the other 3? Like, is he just behind the rest of them?
He just follows behind. The real
He's in
4th one is
charge.
microtransactions and apps. Truly a horseman of the apocalypse.
And soliciting reviews for podcasts. That's the worst. So,
I
hey, if
hate
you
when
guys
people
are
do
listening
that.
right now, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating.
No money, because we haven't earned that yet.
But we've earned a
But the
review.
ratings, come on, we gave you Lincoln died from cholera head explosions. That's
Yeah,
5-star fucking
You
material.
owe us a rating. That costs nothing but your time. And we've learned how like our time is just not valuable anymore.
Yeah, you have
And
so much of it.
it
You're
never
not working
was.
out. Come on.
Get this economy up and running, guys.
With a 5-star review.
That's the other horseman of the apocalypse is
The economy.
paused economy.
What are our 4 horsemen of 2020?
Murder hornets.
Murder hornets, Miss Rona,
Wildfires,
wildfires, and
race wars.
yep. We're there.
Yeah.
We made it.
We've hit it right on the nail. Or
We're
right
not
on the
even
head,
done
I
with
guess.
we are at the halfway point, guys. There are 6 more months for us to find more horsemen.
You know, it's been
Oh,
a new one every month.
I'm just waiting for October to roll around. Walt Disney wakes up from his frosty slumber and he's like, welcome to Mickey's really scary Halloween party.
oh, it's so cute because we're all like, ha ha, once 2020 is over, nothing bad is ever going to happen again. Bam, climate change.
Yeah, we got that on the horizon. So we're not looking there yet.
Hey, we'll have an episode on that coming out in November. So
November 3rd, to be precise.
The mythology of climate change.
Yeah, we debunked it.
It's not happening.
We as a group debunked it.
We found the ice wall.
I think it's important to say that it is a real thing. This is not.
Thank you, Brett.
We let a lot of things slide as jokes here, but we're not going to let this one go.
Just dump more ice on the North and South Pole. We'll be fine.
Just like your dad does when he drinks in the morning.
Fuck.
Oh, any other fun plague mythology things that maybe we could talk about and not that?
Ring around
think-
the rosy.
We could ring around that Rosie.
Fantastic.
What are you going to talk about with Ring Around the Rosie?
It's a great game. You should play it.
Have you ever played the game? Is that
Well, you just stand in a circle with other kids and sing a song really creepily, almost
Is
like
it a
the
game
opening
or
to
just
a
dancing?
Nightmare on Elm Street film.
It's a hand-holding, circling, singing game.
Which really bad idea for the plague. Don't hold hands with other people.
Didn't even
That's
think
why they
about
all
that.
fall down at the end of the song
Yeah, that's
because they
very
didn't
true.
observe social distancing.
That's true. Very
man,
accurate.
the old songs like that are difficult though, because isn't there also a kind of a working theory that it's political?
I haven't heard that one. Who would it be directed towards?
Well, hold on though, because considering how
Ah.
politicized this current pandemic is, it wouldn't be shocking if the two were intertwined.
oh,
now-
You know what? That's
No.
fair.
But I feel like then, I don't know. I feel like a political thing for something at that time feels more not a thing. I don't know how to word that, but it doesn't feel as right just because of how much they attached a religious aspect to it. And like, I don't think they're necessarily going out as much at that time and saying, I'm going to blame my leader for this.
Well, remember, though, the leaders often tried to pose as if they were chosen by God or spoke for God or were champions for God, right? So if they
That's
thought
true.
their country was being punished by God, it stands to reason that they would look up and say, well, that guy's between us and God. It's his fault.
His fault.
Yeah.
Not my fault.
No, I
I
didn't.
can drink from the shit lake. I'm fine drinking from shit lake. But because that guy is a sodomite, now all of a sudden we're dying.
My late 23-year-old father and his late 22-year-old father before him drank from shit lake, and by God, I will too.
Listen, my dad died at the ripe old age of 18. And I'll be damned if I'm not going to drink from night shit, same water as him.
Yes,
the Ring Around the Rosie. The likely origin is the religious ban on dancing amongst Protestants in the 19th century.
Oh, so it's
Hold
like
on.
a footloose thing.
It's
Adolescents
footloose.
Yep.
It's just
Adolescents
footloose.
found a way around the dancing ban with what was called in the United States play party, which consisted of ring games.
Ring games.
Kevin
Rover?
Bacon
And
came
they
down
differed
and
from
taught
square
them to
dances
dance.
only in their name.
Snap the whip, isn't that one? Or crack the whip? What is that? Where they all hold hands and they run around in a zigzag and fling people? Did you guys ever play that one?
I think you're thinking of Red Rover.
Everybody
that
just
sounds like
stay
some
real quiet.
Shula shit right there.
It's
You
like
guys never did that? You go down around by that bar and you guys whip the shit or something?
Everybody holds hands and you run in like a weird zigzag pattern and you sling the person at the end. So.
No.
Nope.
Cannot say I ever played this game.
That sounds like a poverty game. The more that I say it out loud.
Was this near the limestone quarry that you all were being raised to work at or whatever it was?
It was a phosphorus quarry. Thank you.
No, I
that
grew up
doesn't
in
sound
New
like a
York.
very
We
fun
played
game as
cool
I
games
say it out
like-
loud as an adult.
In New York, we played cool games like read the book and play Nintendo, not whip the kids off.
Run about and snap the last person running at full tilt into the ground.
You guys never played that game? No, Brett. We had Mega Man 2. We did not play that.
Must have been nice.
I played Pokemon. He played Push the Man. Down. Push the man down.
Hold hands with your friends and run around and throw the last person in line directly into the ground.
Although there is, thankfully, Brett, someone listening to this going like, I played that all the time. Oh, no.
And they're like,
Oh, no.
Was I poor?
wait a minute. Was I poor? I was. What?
There was a Mega Man 2?
Oh, God.
Second one?
All those hot dog sandwiches make sense.
And here I thought Beanie Weenies was always a birthday lunch. So I'm going to circle things back up around here, lest we whip off more of these things. I remember we pocketed a topic early on, so let's circle back around to everybody's favorite beaked man, the plague doctor.
Exactly. So, all right, first of all, I've got some grievances to air with this, okay?
Oh, shit.
Save it for
Why-
Festivus, buddy.
Why does the plague doctor get panned as being ridiculous in pop culture?
Because it's a man dressed like a bird.
Yeah, it's definitely the bird mask, I would say.
Just the bird mask? That's it?
Not the
Yeah, the
flowers
funny
stuffed into the nose of it.
Okay. So what's the problem with that? Because
I don't have a problem. I'd like to go on record and say I think the plague doctor, while people thinking like, oh, that's stupid, he's dressed up like a bird, you're just trying to be scary. No, like knowing what they stumbled upon with the plague doctor, and I didn't realize you accidentally activated a rant, but here we go.
Let's rant. That's what this is about. This
Let's
is
go
why we've
for
been
it.
talking about this.
So I think the plague doctor is one of the most accidentally brilliant things they've come into when it comes to plagues. Just like we kind of circled back to the germ theory, right? No, they didn't know that they were wearing a mask to prevent getting sick for that reason. They stuffed it with herbs and flowers so that it would smell good and ward off the scent of death, which is what they assumed carried this plague to everybody. So yeah, obviously sniffing a lavender flower is not going to prevent you from getting the plague, but wearing a giant mask that accidentally keeps you 6 feet away from people, congratulations. You've not died of the plague, hopefully.
God, can you imagine if a bunch of the protesters came out dressed like plague doctors? That would be the most terrifying march, but it would also be a lot safer regarding coronavirus. I'm just putting that out there.
Did you see the people at the beaches that were dressed like plague doctors?
Yes.
That was brilliant. It was such a powerful image, and then we got to hear. So,
yeah, and here we are.
Did you know, Nick, that not only did that mask have, obviously a long beak on it, but the thing had glass eyes?
Yeah, they had like the little
open.
Steampunk goggle-looking things.
Yes, it had
in
glass
case they were
eye
nearsighted,
cover.
because otherwise they were going to keep poking people with that beak.
And so it has glass eyes. It has shit stuffed in the nose, which keeps
Not
it
shit.
further
Not-
from the face.
not
Not
actual
shit.
shit.
That's a different
They have the
story.
secret blend of herbs and spices to keep the plague away.
Hi, I'm Colonel Harlan Sanders, and you've got to buy my beak fillings. It's made with 11 different herbs and spices to keep that Black Death away from you. Pick it up at any Kentucky Fried Chicken near you.
And on top of that, they've got big, giant gloves. So these guys, like you said, Nick, are masked, gloved, and they've got a giant apron on.
And they
So-
washed it off.
Don't forget about the stick.
Tell me about the stick. What is the stick?
Do you not know about as someone who is so pro plague outfit, I imagine you would know about the stick. So the stick was an essential component of the plague doctor outfit because basically that's the only way that they would touch their patient. If they wanted to poke or prod at the various parts of the body, they would use the stick.
They had a poking stick, and I didn't
They had
even
a
catch
poking
that.
stick.
That's
way
amazing.
before Stand By Me poke the dead guy.
That's the plague, all right.
You're gonna pull up pictures of plague doctors later, and you're gonna see in every picture they got that fucking stick.
I just
seen the
assumed it
stick.
was a
I
fancy
didn't-
cane.
I didn't know what. I thought it was a cane too.
Well, you thought all plague doctors had a limp?
No, I thought it was for style, you
I thought it was a
peon.
fashion choice.
Hang on though. Are you saying that there are photos of 1347 where I can see actual plague doctors with their
Yeah,
stick?
it's on Instagram.
There's
It was under hashtag Black
illustrations.
Plague.
And recreation of historic clothing that you can see. And literally, that's amazing. They had
How have I never seen a
thing.
plague doctor at like a Renaissance fair? Sorry, that's an
You've clearly
unrelated
not been
note.
to enough Ren fairs.
I am so enraptured by the Seder men that I don't pay attention to the plague doctors.
There's a wood nymph, and you're looking for a plague doctor?
Let's see here. Yes,
the medic tent.
They used wooden canes in order to point out areas needing attention and to examine patients without touching them. The canes were also used to keep people away.
They were beating.
Oh, so
You're
they hit
literally
people with
beating
a-
people off with a stick.
They were shillelaghs to keep them away.
They used it to keep people away, to remove clothing from plague victims without having to touch them, and to take a patient's pulse.
What?
You take a pulse with
How
a
do you take a
stick.
pulse with a stick?
Man, I don't fucking.
He just like
I'm
puts it up against you. He's just, let's see here. You guys can't see this, but we're on a Zoom call. He just puts it up against you. You hear dum, 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 dum. Oh, yes, he's got a fine pulse there.
That is amazing. All of these things are amazing. They were so close with every bit of this costume.
I think we can easily say plague doctors peak of their time period's ingenuity.
I agree with you 100%. And, like when you think about the outfit as a whole, like when I look at it, all that I can think of is, what if I was to wear it, right? Like,
Please stop.
what
I
if-
can only get so erect, Brett.
if I had this outfit, and I really think that this is another good time to bring up the Patreon again. Why we need your hard-earned money. That if I had this outfit, that not only would I feel just whole, I would feel like peak goth and just so sexual in many different ways that I think that it would just shake me to my core. And I think that it would even challenge the boundaries of the kinks that I'm willing to admit in a group forum, just head to toe. I'm covered in this leather ensemble, a large mask that is just reeks of pleasant herbs and spices. And, if I was feeling saucy, maybe I even pronounce them herbs with a hard H, with my long phallic beak and the glass eyes, just a true sense of anonymity to walk amongst the populace in this. The gimp suit of the Dark Ages. There I would be. I would be the king of sex amongst the unrighteous in a sex dungeon of my own imagining, free of all shame. No hang-ups here, ladies and gentlemen. This suit completes me. And the only way that we're ever going to get this is if we come together and we donate on Patreon so that we can get this, not just for myself, but for everyone on this show. Because I think that's what the good people need. They need 6 to 7 grown men, depending on who is recording and whose schedules are available, to wade through the public in this and really not even be able to be judged by anyone due to the anonymity that the suit brings, and really spread the good word. And as I take the suit off at the end of the day, I can hose it off because it's made out of leather and it's tailored to just fit me, and I can rest calmly at my home and look at it hanging and waiting for me to don it again the next day and the day after and the day after that. I don't imagine I'd ever take this thing off but to sleep. I'm sorry, what were we talking about again? I think that we were talking about the plague.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Go Folk Yourself.
Go Folk Yourself. Quick shout out to my nephew, Isaac. Thank you for listening to our show.
I'm really glad you're a mature adult and can deal with that without the searing images in your head.
Brett, explain this.
I think that we can all agree that we need them, right? And that plague doctors were heroes that took advantage of PPE way longer before we knew we needed it.
Yep.
If anything, Brett, you have changed how I view the plague doctor and made it an even scarier costume.
I disagree. I'll be in my bunk.
Well, I'm out, guys. You all have a good podcast.
Yeah. What's that? Hold on. You know what? My son's calling me. I have to go as well. It's so weird.
Well, I've got all evening, Nick, if you're ready.
Yeah. I think you've awakened something. Let's explore this in detail.
Well,
that's where we cut it, right?
Yeah.
Season wrap, everybody. Brett, lead it out and say goodbye to everyone at home.
All righty. Well, as always, thanks for listening. And we're not sorry that we haven't recorded in so long. It's just life gets in the way, 2020, etc. We don't make any excuses for not making the content. We literally moved across the country and have just now gotten our lives back together to a point in time where we can record for you again. So we hope that you, if you're a historic listener of ours, stuck around for the long haul. We've got more good stuff coming. And if you're a brand new listener, I don't know how you found us. Fantastic work. Go listen to the backlog, except for Alabama. That episode's bad.
Not great.
Yeah, also Florida 1. Florida 1. Florida 2? Okay.
Yeah, Florida 2 Redux. Pretty good. And the entirety of the Sabrina the Teenage Witch content.
Nope.
Fantastic.
If you want a really good distillation of what this show is, it's Sabrina.
Listen to Vampires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9.
And you know what? Vampires 10 is coming out very soon. I've got my Anne Rice anthology in the mail right now. So stay tuned for some great content. We're hoping to deliver some more of these Zoom-powered podcast episodes in the future. And,
speaking of, a quick thank you. And I'm going to say this thanks at the end of every single episode. I want to thank the Bleaches because even though they are no longer patrons of our show, it is because of their kind donations that we were able to use Zoom the way that we are doing it.
True.
So thank you, Bleaches. We will win your patronage back. We will.
And everybody else out there on the internet. We do
still have plenty of people currently patrons and plenty of people to become patrons.
I don't care about them.
I only care about the Bleaches. Maybe come back. That's what I'm here to say.
Come back, everybody.
We're back.
It's warm in here. Get in the pool.
I'm fogging up my Plague Dr. Gibbs suit talking to you all.
Sorry. Sorry,
I can't see out of the eye holes anymore.
the leather is stuck in sensitive areas. I've got to stop the recording.
It chafes.
Oh, God.